Hello guys, welcome back to the Northeast Update YouTube channel, and you're joining with some breaking news. So the rumour mill, first of all, for Newcastle United anyway, the last 24 hours has been absolutely ridiculous. It's been an overdrive. We've seen Anthony Gordon be linked with a potential move away, joining Liverpool. That's been broken down apparently because there was issues with a swap deal. Newcastle wanted one of Liverpool defenders as part of the deal, couldn't agree, and it's broken down. But there was talks that it was going to be revisited before the 31st. Now, a lot of fans on our Facebook page, we've got obviously Northeast Updates, but the Newcastle United page that we've got is Newcastle Supporters Worldwide. I'll put a link below with that. Whenever we put anything on the last few days about PSR and any players kind of being linked, we get a lot of negative feedback. A lot of people thought this is literally just clickbait, this, that, and the other. The owners know what they're talking about. We're not anywhere near that. It seems that we were. So a lot of the national press that reported this and stuff like that seems that they did know what they were talking about. Obviously, all we do is share stuff from all of this national press and everything else. But it seems that there obviously was something to it because Newcastle have had to sell one of their players. They've had to sell a very promising young player, probably one of the most promising young players we've got at the club, maybe arguably other than Lewis Miley, who's had a fantastic season. Is Minteh. Now, we signed him for 7 million. He's going to be sold for 33 million if reports are to be believed. Now, he's going off to Brighton. Now, there was rumours he was going to Lyon. It was Everton were interested. There was a lot of other foreign clubs who were seemingly interested in him as well, but Brighton seems to have made a jump on that. They've put down 33 million. He seems to be happy enough to go over. Seems like terms aren't going to be a big condition, and what's going to happen is he's going to be over there before the deadline now. So that takes away any issue that Newcastle have got, hopefully, of having to sell Gordon, Isak, any other of their star players. Nobody did come in for Bruno before the deadline as well. So Newcastle have had a good transfer window so far. They've managed to retain all of their star players. Now, if this move is a good move or a bad move, only time is going to tell because no one knows just how far this lad is going to go. Obviously, to get this amount of interest, there's got to be something to him. He had a fantastic season for Feyenoord. A lot of clubs have obviously looked at that and thought, right, he can replicate that in the Premier League. This is why there's such heavy interest in him. Now, if he becomes a top-class superstar, everyone's going to look back and think, oh my God, you only sold him for 33 million. He's now worth 60, 70, 80, whatever it is. People will then look back and say this is a bad decision. As it stands at the moment, it's a risk either way. No one kind of knows. But you're getting £33 million for someone that's not necessarily a guarantee to become a superstar. How many times have we seen in the past that a lot of these promising players have just broken down and you never really get to see them reach the levels that they kind of were first promised to? Now, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case with Minty. It does seem like he's got a lot of potential, a lot of things going for him. But do you sell potential or do you sell a guaranteed striker like Isak, who you know is guaranteed to probably get you 20 goals in the Premier League, or Anthony Gordon, where you know what he can do against every single opposition? He's my favourite player for Newcastle, a fantastic player. Now, my personal thoughts for PSR in terms of Newcastle is I'm a little bit surprised in it because if you think Newcastle qualified for Champions League football, now we weren't expected to do that. So when Newcastle were going out and spending and buying all of these players and stuff, you would imagine we never budgeted for getting into the Champions League. So the money that we would have gotten for the Champions League would have come as a complete surprise and would have been a bonus sort of thing. I know we've just signed a massive deal with Adidas. Every single week it seems that Newcastle are securing a massive commercial agreement as well. So that it did seem that the bank account for Newcastle and all the incomings and stuff like that were very healthy, and it shouldn't really be an issue. For me personally, and this is me, I know nothing about Newcastle's facts and figures in terms of what goes on, but I think the Lewis Hall deal has kind of tipped it over a little bit. Now, if we've seen last season, it was very suspicious how Eddie Howe was not relying on him. He wasn't fetching him on. We were in the middle of an injury crisis, and he was not getting any game time. Now, there was a deal where once he hit a certain amount of appearances for Newcastle, that we had to sign him for 35 million. Now, I've got a feeling that that's what's tipped this over in terms of the need for Newcastle to budget for this. It seems kind of around the same amount that we're going to get for Minteh compared to what we bought him for. We bought him for 7 million. We're going to sell him for 33 million. I've got a feeling that the purchase of Lewis Hall, because he went over them figures, which I think Eddie Howe was told, don't go over that, don't let him get his appearances because we maybe can't afford it without going over budget, then we're going to have to sell someone. I think he tried that for as long as possible, but in the end, because of injuries and stuff like that, he did end up having to play him. Then I think once he was over that, he was played loads of different games because it wasn't really a case of trying to hold them back at all. So for me personally, I think that's what's tipped Newcastle over in terms of making them have to make a sale. Now, it's a little bit odd. Like probably most of you guys, I like to keep up to date with every single rumour and everything like that. I love it. It's best part of the season normally. We were linked with Elise. We were linked with loads of different players. Now, it doesn't make sense at the moment why we were linked with them players when we had to sell someone. So is it a case of Newcastle, because I think that there was a bid put in for Elise, either that or it was strongly rumoured. Where are all of these rumours and stuff coming from if Newcastle weren't necessarily able to put a bid in for any players? Now, the PSR deadline as well, that ends in literally just a couple of days now, the 31st. So it's a new window for Newcastle. Does that mean that we're all of a sudden going to be able to spend some money and actually get some players in? If so, could we go for Minteh? Probably not. But in terms of the transfer window as a spectacle, maybe it means that Newcastle are going to adhere to this 3-year window, and then moving into this next year, there is a little bit of money to spend. Who knows? We're going to have the Adidas, which are going to go into the financial accounts. Obviously, it's a huge, huge deal. The numbers are eye-watering compared to Castore. All of the other commercial deals, which I mentioned, there's tons. Every single week you see them, different sponsors, different thing. You've seen Stack, that's about to be built outside of Newcastle. They're going to get commercial stuff from. The team at Newcastle have obviously got a ton of commercial acumen. They know exactly what they're doing in terms of fetching revenue in. They've got Newcastle fans, including myself, who's a member. So you literally just pay that £35 just to become a member. Then obviously you get your tickets. Then they're getting money inside of the stadiums. A ton of money that they're getting for shirts and shorts and every single bit of kit. You've seen the queues a mile long in terms of when that came out. So going into this next window with all of that money in, you would imagine there is some sort of budget. How much? I'm not entirely sure. I wouldn't like to guess. But hopefully we can address some of the stuff, because it seems like Callum Wilson's linked on his way out as well. If he goes, we're going to need a replacement. By the time this goes out, I'll try to get this out tonight. It could be that Dubravka as well, his transfer fee could absolutely skyrocket. He plays England in the next few days as well on Sunday. Now, a good performance against England is going to see his transfer valuation go through the roof. Now, you'd imagine, touched on this before in a few other different videos, he's probably not going to be happy sitting at Newcastle playing second fiddle. That's why he left to go to Manchester United. He got a load of game time last season because of the Nick Pope injury. You'd imagine he's probably going to be knocking on the door this season now Nick Pope's back, saying he's at the end of his career, he wants to go and play somewhere. If he has a good match against England, which I hope he doesn't, if I'm being completely honest, I would love England to go and win the Euros. Him having a good match would mean that we got knocked out. So I would like him to have a bad game. I'm not too bothered about his transfer fee, but if he does leave, it would mean that Newcastle, having lost Karius as well, are going to need to spend a little bit of money on the goalkeeper situation. There's also the left-back situation, which probably needs strengthening. We've got Botman, who's out with a massive injury as well for the season. He's going to need some sort of cover, and then possibly the right wing as well to replace Almiron. That seems to be, whenever we put questions out, asking people who their number one target is and different stuff like that, whenever we're outside St James's Park, it's almost unanimous that that right wing position is the number one issue that a lot of Newcastle fans see. So there's a lot of issues for Newcastle that you'd prefer to see them spend on outfield players than the goalkeeping situation. So hopefully Dubravka does stick around. It would literally just paper over the cracks for this transfer window, if not January. Means we can spend some money on outfield players, which is exactly what we need. Callum Wilson goes in his last year of contract. So it's a case of, do we sell him in the summer now and get 15, 20 million, whatever it's going to be for him? Or do we let his contract run out and then we get nothing next summer for him? Now, I've always been someone who always has a business mind of this. I never like to see assets, which is exactly what footballers are, leave for nothing. Arsenal had a terrible track a few years ago before Arteta kind of came in. Aubameyang left for nothing. Loads of these star players were leaving for nothing, and I would not like to see that for Newcastle. If you've got a £20 million asset and you let him leave, that's 20 million that you could have had on the balance sheet that lets you spend another 20 million. So there's a lot of work that Newcastle should really be doing in this transfer window, but it seems like our arms are still tied by this PSR. Right, and that's it. I just wanted to quickly jump on just to kind of break the news. You've probably seen it already, but I wanted to see what you guys' thoughts are on this. Do you think it's the right move? Should we have sold somebody else? What's your thoughts on the fee, 33 million? And how on earth are Chelsea doing it? That's the thing that absolutely blows my mind. When you see other clubs and they're just free spending and chucking money around, and then you see Newcastle having to sell someone rather, such a promising young player that could have had a massive future at Newcastle, probably for all intents and purposes, that's why he was signed for. Now we're having to sell literally for an accountant style thing. It's frustrating. As a football fan, it's pathetic. I mean, last season, when you see the little asterisks beside Nottingham Forest and Everton, football's becoming away from football and seems to be fought on accountants and different stuff like that, how you can get around with different loopholes and stuff. It's stupid. It's frustrating. Let us know what your thoughts are below. Is this the right move? And how far do you think Minteh will go? 2-3 years' time, how far do you think he will become in the Premier League? How good of a player will he do? Don't forget, like always, like, follow, subscribe. We are just a local channel, so every single follow is much appreciated. And thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one.